Today, we've got Stella joining us live from a conference that is going on in California. So I'm looking forward to hearing what she's got to say about this big conference that is going on. The panel that she's part of is Fair Housing with Action, implementing protections that prohibit discrimination based on race, national origin, protecting veterans, and those from the LGBTQ communities and all along those lines. So definitely looking forward to hearing about this amazing conference and what she's got going on in that area. We are always glad when we can have our people coming in from another part of the world. She's usually based right here in North Carolina, where I'm at in the Raleigh Durham area. But today she's at a major conference. So I'm going to bring Stella in and see what she's got going on. And I think she's going to make her presentation right here live on the network on Pod TVs and everything like that. So we're very excited to have Stella joining us and all in that space. So how are you doing, Stella? I understand you've got a major event going on and you're not in Durham and everything. So we're looking forward to
Hi,
this
everybody.
conversation.
Good morning, everybody. It's morning here in California, and we are broadcasting live from the Fair Housing for Our Future conference, and it is really up at stake. I have as my guests this morning two fellow Durhamites who also traveled here for this conference, Larry Revelle and Glenda Del Castillo, who are with me and participating in this conference. First, some breaking fair housing news, some breaking news that impacts North Carolina significantly. Bloomberg is reporting that 50% of HUD staff will be cut, and that includes the entire Civil Rights Division. And shockingly, it also includes the office that's responsible for rebuilding cities after natural disasters. That is a major blow to the people of Western North Carolina and to the continued folks in that suffer from Matthew and Florence. But for the Helene people, that will have immediate and devastating impact right here during the winter when we're expecting a storm on Wednesday to come through our state Wednesday night. And we have 6,000 folks still without some residency in the mountains. And you're going to tell us that you're not going to rebuild? You're going to lay off the staff that is responsible for rebuilding homes and communities in the West? This is a devastating day, devastating day. But one of the things that we have experienced here at this conference is motivation and inspiration from fair housing professionals all over our country. And I'm going to ask Larry to talk a little bit about his experience here at the conference and what his role is in Durham in our community in carrying out fair housing work, and also all the work that he does for our community in his capacity.
Well, thank you very much, Stella. It is an absolute honor to be a part of Stella's podcast. And I've known Stella for many years. And I tell you what, I never miss a moment to tell everybody that Stella started in our office, that is the Fair Housing Office for the city of Durham. We're known as Human Relations, but also Fair Housing. And it is just a pleasure to see that the coworker has just risen right to the top, who's testified before congressional committees and who's considered a powerhouse when it comes to fair housing. But we are with the local Fair Housing Office in Durham, and part of our mission is to the extent that we can, try to eradicate housing discrimination. It's such a serious matter, and it's amazing because people ask me, who may not know what we do, and I tell them a little bit about what they do, and they say, "Well, but wait a minute, 2025, we don't really have a problem with fair housing today, do we? Really?" I said, "Yes, we do, and we have many cases. In fact, it's almost like the floodgates have opened, and people are just filing cases left and right because now they're not afraid anymore. There was a time when people were concerned about retaliation. Well, if I file a complaint against my landlord, he might do something about it and might, pose some problems for me down the road. But we let people know that, look, you have every right to file a complaint. If you ever run into a situation of retaliation, you let us know in the Fair Housing Office, because that is also illegal. Because if they thought they had trouble before for just, getting a complaint filed against them, then it's going to be double trouble, because now you've also got a retaliation charge filed against you. That is big trouble. You don't want that. So we try to encourage people to, regardless of the situation, file your complaint with our office. Let us help you. A lot of times we hear people say, but wait a minute, how much is that going to cost me? I don't have a lot of money, and I can't even afford an attorney. And we tell them, you don't need an attorney. You just come to our office. We are paid for with your tax dollars. So come see us and let us help you for free. FREE, free. We do not charge. We tell people all you got to do is file your complaint. And like that old Greyhound commercial said, leave the driving to us. And we take it from there, So I just want to encourage people to please, whatever you do, if you run into any kind of housing issues, and because, we work in what's known as human relations, and we believe that we are here for really everybody. So if you say, well, look, I don't have a problem with fair housing, let's move on. Maybe not you, but if you care about your community, if you care about your neighborhood, if you care about the people who live around you, spread the word. There may be people in your community of faith. There may be people in your neighborhood or some of your social organizations. Let them know if they ever mention to you anything about issues with fair housing. Remind them, look, there's an agency right here in the city of Durham that can help you for free. And we'd be more than happy to do that, because that's what we do. And can I say one more thing real quick? All right, one more thing, I'll be through. I just got to say just how proud we were when Stella did a presentation yesterday. I think she does so well. I think she did like 2 presentations, and we were all just floored at how well she represented Durham, North Carolina. And while she's up there speaking, we're telling everybody, hey, she's from our town. She's from Durham. So she did really well. And I wish I had more time to go into detail about what she said, but I'm sure you'll be hearing about it as time goes on.
Thank you so much, Larry. And I do want to ask you one more question, because when people file complaints with the local office, one of the things is they get justice sooner than if they had to languish at the state or federal level. And also, Durham has some additional protections that, other than race, color, religion, sex, national origin, familial status, or disability,
Exactly.
and religion. So can you share a little bit about what those extra protections are?
Yes, and see, this is why I am so excited to be living in Durham, because in Durham, we have got a community who says, well, those separate protected classes, that's fine for the federal level, but this is Durham, okay? And there's this is Durham. And there's one motto that says, do it like Durham. And so in Durham, we're proud to say that we have 4 additional classes. One of those is military status.
Say so.
Yes, nobody should ever discriminate against you because you're in the military. I remember one case we had where somebody was had filed a complaint because they said, look, I just wear my military garb around. That's who I am. That's what I do. And apparently the management didn't like it. And so they're giving me a lot of grief because I wear my military garb. And they actually came in and filed a complaint. And we said, you have every right to do that. And, hey, military status, that's a protected class now. And another reason why military status is so important is a lot of times when people come in from the military, Stella, they might have an additional issue like PTSD or some kind of disability. So a lot of times those two are tied together. We let them know that military status, disability, that's also covered. Oh, and one more thing I'll say that I'll stop. I'll turn it over this. But look, there's also a protected class now in Durham for protected hairstyles.
Come
Okay,
on, crown it.
protected, yes, protected hairstyle. So, and look, I know it sounds crazy because people laugh when I tell them, but sometimes people discriminate against you and tell you, oh, well, no, I don't know if we want you living out here in this community, or because we're also an EEOC office, you want a job and with that kind of hairstyle, come to our office. Let us help you for free, with filing a complaint. That's what we do, and we'll be more than happy to help you. So that's a couple of the extra protected classes that I think Glenda can tell you about even more. We got 2 more, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Glenda Del Castillo. Thank you so much, Stella, for having me. We have 2 additional protected classes, which is gender identity and sexual orientation. So basically, based on if they feel like they are perceived by gender, that they feel like they're transgender and they feel like they're being discriminated against, they have their rights to file a complaint with our office. We handle all types of complaints. We handle housing, employment, and public accommodation also in our office. But what we handle mostly in our office, me and Larry, are in our division, is housing. So we encourage anybody to file a complaint. Like he said, retaliation is a big thing in our community. And I tell everybody, don't feel like if they're going to retaliate against you. If they do, give us a call. We'll add it to your protected, we'll add it to the complaint so that you're protected. But we also encourage them to also speak to attorneys. We send them to legal aid, NCCU Law Clinic, Duke Law Clinic, so they can get the legal assistance. Our process is a little bit slower because we have to do an investigation, but we always encourage people to find additional resources. We help them find resources if they're having eviction issues and they feel like they're going to be evicted. We try to find resources for them to have housing or find rentals that are easier for them. We try to work with different communities to see what they're going through, so we can help them, and also to engage with those communities so that they can feel heard and that they're welcome. And once they have an issue, they're more welcome or feel comfortable in letting us know about those issues. Because sometimes a lot of people, even though that they're going through something, they don't want to speak about it because they don't feel like somebody's going to hear them. So our office is always open. I tell them they can come into our office, they can give me a phone call, text me, anything, but we encourage anybody to file a complaint. I'm very grateful for being in this conference. This is my 2nd year being in the conference, and have learned so much about so many things that I didn't know about what was going on. She was talking about what was going on in California, about the fires, and about the alert that went out. And I thought that was very impactful, like not finding out that another community was given notice prior, but then the other community was given a notice at 2 a.m. So I thought that's a discrimination, because that's something that it should have been gone out to everybody. It's like she was stating, why couldn't it be sent out to everybody? So those are things that we need to focus on. And I'm glad that she brings out those issues, because if they don't really talk about those in the news. So bringing those issues out helps me understand other issues that might impact our cities that we don't see. I know she went to another conference that I went to, and I heard about the Durham parks, and I was like, I didn't know. I work in Durham, and I was shocked, and I was, wow, I need to hear about this. And it's very, I love to hear her because she's so wonderful at everything. Yes. It's like I can't master her, but she's so wonderful. I really enjoy her conferences and the status. She backs it up with data, which is amazing, because sometimes you hear about it, but you don't really see the data. So I love that she brings the data there. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This was not meant to be a praise fest, but I'm gonna accept all this. But what's important is that In Durham, we have protections. You're going to hear a lot about DEI programs and the de-emphasis and the abuse of members of the LGBTQ community. Know that in Durham, you're protected.
Yes.
Know that in Durham, you're respected. And we are going to stand, our community, the people that you just met, they are going to stand with you and fight for you.
Yes. Yes.
They will honor the law. Okay. One of the things I want each one of you to tell me about a case you investigated that impacted you and had impact for the people of Durham.
Mhm. There are actually, my goodness, so many cases I've
Yeah,
investigated
I know
over the
you
years. Yeah, and I guess what we're seeing more of now than ever before. A lot of times people ask us, well, what basis discrimination do you see the most? And it's kind of sad to say, but the disability cases, we've got so many people coming in and say, hey, look, they discriminated against me because I have a disability. And we let them know, well, if you feel that way, you have every right to file a complaint. So just to let you know that there are teeth in the law for the city of Durham. The city doesn't just say, okay, well, you can't discriminate, but teeth in the law, okay? Over the years, I've had cases where we've gotten complainants through a conciliation agreement. They've gotten as much as, I guess, thinking off the top of my head, maybe as much as $80,000, okay? Because once we determine that this is a what we call a cause case, meaning we did find reason to believe that there was some discrimination going on, then we go into our conciliation mode to say, okay, this is our finding to the respondent. So how do you want to handle this? Do you want us to move on down to the court, or would you like to see if we can try to conciliate this without going to court? Because of course, court is going to be a whole lot more expensive if we take that route. And many times, in fact, most of the times, I think people prefer just trying to see if we can work it out through a conciliation agreement. But we have seen, oh my goodness, so many cases where if you go in an apartment, you know, the apartment is not handicap accessible, even though it's supposed to be, which means you should be able to easily get in and maneuver around the sink area, maneuver around the bathroom, the shower area, and so forth. And if you can't do that, you certainly have a right to call us. Sometimes people say, but you know, I just didn't really want to call you because it may not really be a case and I don't want to waste y'all's time. No, don't think that way. Look, we are the experts in the matter. We're the subject matter experts. If you think you've been discriminated against, call us, let us know, let us do our job and investigate and find out. If we find out there's been no discrimination, that's what we'll say. We do not see what there's been. But if we find out there has been some discrimination, then that's where we take action. And that's why our intake specialist is so important. Our point of contact, the first person you talk with when you contact our office will be the person you just heard, Glenda Del Castillo, and she will listen to your concern and very strategically think about it and see if it rises to the level of being a case that we can investigate. And if it is, she takes that case and writes it up, and then she sends it over to our side, the investigator's side, and then we take the ball and run with it. So just to answer your question, Stella, we have numerous cases. Oh my gosh, there are so many, but you would be amazed at how even today, 2025, people are still discriminating. And I don't know why. I mean, we have a huge outreach program where we go out and tell people, look, this is wrong. You cannot do this. But I guess maybe not everybody understands.
I want you to talk a little bit about the intake process, because in a fair housing, employment, public accommodation case, the most important point of contact is the intake
Yes.
person.
Yes.
But they're also, because they're the first point of contact, they're also the person in the office that deals with the raw emotion of the complainants.
Yes.
And you know, we had Angela on a few weeks ago to talk about that secondary impact on the emotional context and that it takes to be able to really manage that, pull those facts together. And sometimes, and then the other key part of your job is making referrals to other agencies because the person's harm is the person's harm, whether it falls under a protected basis or not. That person was truly harmed. And how do you help people process through as well as manage to maintain your objectivity in your analysis when you're doing this very important, this critical step in the investigatory process?
Yes, ma'am. With a lot of empathy. That's first of all. You have to have a lot of empathy for people. You have to understand that it's housing. That's where they live, so they can't go anywhere from it. If they're going through discrimination, they're living it. They're there all day. In an employment and public accommodation, they can at least get away with it. But in housing, it's a little tougher. You live there every day. You have to deal with it. So empathy is the biggest thing for people. Listening to them, giving them time for them to, speak their truth, letting them raw their emotions out. I let them just, vent what they need to say. And then I let them vent. And once they are already vented out, they are more willing to tell me exactly what's going on. And we just base it on basically if it's a discrimination based on one of the protected classes. I know that sometimes they talk about other issues that are happening that have nothing to do with fair housing, but I always encourage them, I'm here to help you to file this complaint. I know you're going through something and I want to help you out, so I need to have facts. I know, like they said, feelings are not facts, but facts are what we need in our office. We need to know what's going on. What are you alleging? What are you telling us? What is going on? When did it happen? Where did it happen? Who did you speak to? All that information is important. A lot of people, when they're in housing, they forget to ask the person in the leasing office what's their name, who they spoke to, or what maintenance person they spoke to. That's one of the hardest part in intake because sometimes people don't know who they spoke to. But I encourage them, even though you're filing this complaint, we'll figure it out. We will figure out who's in the office. We'll make our research. We do like a pre-investigation before we send it to investigation. So to make sure that we have jurisdiction. For us to have jurisdiction, the property owner has to have more than 3 properties. So that's one of the things that we have jurisdictional issues with. They have to allege a discriminatory act that is happening. And so we encourage them that if they feel like, even if they feel like it is, and it doesn't turn out to be a discrimination, even though somebody heard them, and as long as they call us and let me just verify, maybe I'm being discriminated or not, it won't hurt to give me a call and to let's figure it out together. Sometimes you don't even know that you're going through a discrimination until later down the road. And then you're like, wow, I was discriminated. And I didn't feel it at the moment, but later down the road, you do feel it. I always encourage people that the sooner that you feel like it is the better, because remember, we have a time frame to file the complaint as well. So we have a year to file the complaint. So I always encourage anybody, if they feel like they're being treated differently, even if they just feel like it, give us that information. We'll figure it out. If it turns out to be a no cause, better. But if it is a cause case, we have found out that there's a discrimination, we can have somebody get trained so that they won't do it to somebody else. I always tell people when they first come in to file a complaint and they're not sure about filing the complaint, because some people say, you know what, I don't want to go through it. It's a long process. I said, well, imagine if you've gone through it, somebody else will go through it. So you have to be the first step to encourage somebody to file that complaint.
Thank you so much. So we are at a live conference, and I am presenting in like 5 minutes. But you all are going to go with me, and we're going to present. I want to thank our Dermites for handling this and giving the Bull City its props. Let's do it. Let's give the bull sign. All right. And we're large and in charge out here in California.
Thank you.
I hope they switched it up there on me. Oh, they switched it up, so we got time.
Okay.
And I want to just add something, if I can, Stella, just to underline what our intake specialist was saying earlier. We know that it's very, very important that we get facts and information. Sometimes when we go out to do our investigations, I guess the best way I've heard it described is it's almost like an IRS audit, because we want to see your records, we want to see your files, we want to see pretty much everything. So when a respondent calls us sometimes and says, well, I got a letter, we call it a notification letter, said that you all are going to do an investigation. A lot of times the first thing we hear is, well, I don't discriminate, I treat everybody fairly. Okay. And so we say, well, that may be the case, but we still have to do our investigation, so we need to know about the service that you provide. So we a lot of times will have to do interviews on site. We'll visit the property on site when there's been a case of housing discrimination. So it's pretty extensive what we do, and because we are investigators, we have our ABCs of investigation, meaning just because somebody tells you something, don't accept it as fact, but in fact, we say accept nothing, believe no one, and confirm everything that someone tells you. And that's what we do, and we're proud of the service we provide. There is a powerful legal team that stands behind and supports us with our investigation. So we make sure we're trying to do everything the right way for the right reason, the reason it's supposed to be done. And I guess probably one of the best feelings of all is the feeling we get from someone who alleged discrimination, and they come to us afterwards and say, well, thank goodness for you all. I don't know if we would have, if I could have made it without you, because you were there, you helped us, you made sure that the fair housing law was enforced. And that's what we do. That's what we're all about. And we feel like we're pretty good at it. So I just want to, again, take a moment to encourage anybody listening to this and watching this, listening to this podcast, let you know that the city of Durham is here to help you. This is what we are for. And our ordinance as it relates to housing discrimination is very serious. So please let us help you if you run into any kind of issue of housing discrimination. And like I said earlier, if you feel like, well, I'm okay, I really don't rent, I own my home, whatever the case may be, we can still help, because you may know of somebody in the community or in your community of faith or in your social organizations that might need some help. Send them our way so that we can do what we feel like we're good at and help you people. We have a motto in the Human Relations Office, and that motto is fair housing. It is not an option, it's the law. So you've got to remember that everybody has to be treated fairly, and we do not like discrimination. And so that's what we're all about. And I just want to thank Stella for giving us an opportunity to talk this morning and to say hello.
Thank you so much. And people, one of the heroes of our movement just walked in, and I grabbed him. I have known him since he was just a little researcher. doing stats and facts. If I run across somebody who's into stats and facts, they're my people. And he's been my people for almost 30 years. Kevin Stein, he's an advocate out here in California. He is a leader in the Community Reinvestment Act movement. He is one of the thought leaders that created the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. He is our hero, and also a street warrior. Okay, when it was me and Peter in North Carolina at Crank, it got sophisticated and changed its name to Reinvestment Partners. And back when Kevin was young, it was the Community Reinvestment Coalition of California, CRC. Okay. And they've got sophisticated now in their RISE economy. And so, this, when you stop being a street warrior and start getting in them boardrooms, you kind of have to change that name. But we used to do coordinated actions on the East Coast and the West Coast. And one of the best actions we ever did was we had like paper footprints from a payday lender store all the way to the Wells Fargo store, and people along the path. It was a visualization of how predatory lending worked, and it worked. We got all kinds of press, even national press for the event. But but when you have a street warrior that can crunch the numbers and put the charts in the graphs in a way that people can understand it, you got a king. I talk about my warrior queens all the time. Kevin Stein, warrior king. And so I want to introduce him to you all and have him say a few words about what they're doing here in California, and some of the victories they have, and some of the things that I don't know if you're aware, they're cutting 50% of the workforce at HUD, and most of it's coming from, get this, civil rights and disaster recovery.
Wow.
And I think that's like a personal dig at y'all.
Yes, there's a lot of personal digs at us. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stella. I'm embarrassed by your introduction of me, and humbled and appreciative. I'm just the man that came for a chocolate muffin, and then Stella pulled me over and said, "We're doing this thing." So, hi everyone. Yes, and I smile when we bring up older times, and including that protest of Wells Fargo for financing Dollar Financial. So. My former boss, our first executive director at CRC, Alan Fisher, who has since passed away, he did a report talking about data. He did a report. He looked at UCC filings, and he saw where were all the payday lending companies getting their financing, and discovered that Wells Fargo had lent $40 million, I believe.
Wow.
This is many years ago, to Dollar
It's
Financial.
still money. That's still big money today.
Right. Imagine what it would be today. And did this report, and we did this great protest. I love that protest. It's wonderful to connect with allies across the states. You are, our favorites. And I like that for many reasons, including that my wife is a graphic designer, and she designed the big check, the $40 million check that we walked behind from Wells Fargo to Dollar Financial. And we went from one block in the Mission District was the Wells Fargo branch, and a block away near our offices in the Mission in San Francisco was the payday lender. And as you were saying, people from the street just saw this interesting thing where a bunch of people are walking behind money footprints, and we're asking questions and wondering, why is it that the branch is here for some people and the payday lender is there for others, and they have different names and they have different pricing. Yeah, there's a lot going on. We're focused on trying to get financial institutions to do the right thing. It is not easy, and we're concerned about all this federal retreat. We will continue to, work with allies to protect HUD, to protect the CFPB and consumer protection, to protect fair housing, and we are concerned about disaster areas like Altadena, California, which has a rich history and a sad present, and we will hope to direct government and private resources to rebuilding in a way that supports the community, and look forward to trying to bring reinvestment obligations to a number of financial institutions in our state.
Building on past is present. Alan's report um, really showed the connection between the financing, the financing of the big lenders and the results in community. And Rise Economy continues that tradition in terms of tracking fossil fuels and the relationship with the big banks. So could you talk a minute or two about that campaign, which is also under attack?
Yes.
In terms of environmental justice, but connect the dots for the people about your campaign against the lenders and the impact it has. I think you said something like 180 wells.
25,000.
What? Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa,
yeah.
whoa.
We wish it were 180. So we've been historically focused on encouraging bank reinvestment. We've been a community reinvestment advocacy group. We did a strategic planning process a few years ago. We're a coalition of 300 nonprofits working in communities of color and low-income neighborhoods. And when we went out and asked people, like, how are we doing? What should we be working on? A few years ago, they said, you should start working more on climate because it's impacting our communities. And we started to do so. There are so many groups that have been doing this for a long time that we really look to and rely on. Public Citizen, RAND, the list goes on and on. We use their research to see who are the biggest companies, financial institutions investing in fossil fuels, which is the main driver of climate change, which we see in Altadena and fires in LA. So that's the recent connection. My colleague, Jamie Buell, our research analyst, who's fantastic, did a report on the PPP program, the Payment Protection Program,
Right.
because we were able to track who got the PPP dollars, and we saw through financial institutions, and did a report looking at how much of bank financing through the public PPP program went to fossil fuel extraction companies. We continue to do research, and we looked at, California has a lot of oil and well operations.
And that's something I really didn't.
hadn't thought
I've
about.
never thought of California as a place with oil and gas, like in the 25. I think Texas, I think Oklahoma,
Right.
I think Pennsylvania, but
We're
California
up there.
never came into my mind. So this is like news for us on the East Coast. This is news to us that there's so much oil and gas out here.
It may be that it's declining, that in other states it's increasing, and in our state, which has become more conscious about these issues, it's declining. But in some ways, that's not a big relief for us, because we have all these assets, these stranded assets of these old oil and gas wells from years ago that aren't producing even the oil and gas that they're meant to produce for the most part, but they're still harming communities. Mm-hmm. And we looked at, again, Jamie, shout out to Jamie, looked at where was the financing company coming, where was the financing coming for the companies that are operating oil and gas operations in California. And we found that Royal Bank of Canada, which is one of the largest funders of fossil fuels in the world, according to RAND and other allies.
Wow.
They also are financing companies that operate 25,000 oil and gas wells in California, 25,000. And when Jamie mapped it out, where are they located? They're disproportionately in communities of color. So we're going to RBC. We're trying to engage them and say, you need to reform your practices. You need to serve communities better. It's also an interesting little, or not so little, footnote that Royal Bank of Canada is the holding company that owns City National Bank, based in LA, $100 billion, big bank, which was subject to the largest redlining settlement in U.S. history.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I was about to say, what?
Yes.
The evil City National Bank?
Yes, owned by Royal Bank of Canada. So redlining.
Maybe Trump is right about this Canadian thing.
Yeah. So we're working on a number of fronts, and we're trying to get, and it's not only, I mean, if it were only, we would care if we're only about community impact, but it's also a financial stability risk,
Mhm.
because you have companies that are so invested in an industry that's going away. And so we think the regulators should be looking at the risk to banks and insurance companies in investing. And we've been focused on banks, but insurance companies, we've got a huge insurance crisis as well in California and other states. And the insurance companies invest $500 billion in fossil fuel companies. So they're investing in fossil fuels, which fuels climate change, which fuels disasters, which they then point to and say, well, we're going to pick up our ball and go home because this is too risky.
And I think this is a shared concern for North Carolinians and Californians, because on our end, the climate change is related to hurricanes. And when climate change is so bad that it impacts 25 counties in the mountains, and then we always have, it's like y'all have fire season, we have hurricane season. It always impacts the East. And when these companies take our dollars, want to hike our rates 43%, and that was before Helene, we're afraid of what's going to happen after Helene.
We have the similar situation. It was bad before the fires. And now what's happening with the fires, and our insurer of last resort is essentially, bankrupt and not able to pay. And so there's been a determination that all the existing homeowners who are paying insurance will share in the $1 billion cost to essentially bail out the insurer of last resort. So problems before a major, very similar, and things are only going to get worse unless we figure out how to seriously address and mitigate climate change.
And yet, the insurance companies are investing, they're taking our money, investing in fossil fuels that are fueling disasters. Then they're punishing us by either taking away our coverage or doubling and tripling our coverage costs, so they can then invest in more fossil fuels to, again, fuel disasters. Is this what I'm hearing you say, Kevin?
Yeah, this is, I think this is generally accepted to be the case. I don't know that people disagree that fossil fuel companies are leaving because of disasters and charging more, and at the same time investing heavily in fossil fuels.
So here we're going to have to rely on California to lead the way. What kinds of policy changes? And one of the things I'm curious about is these old unproductive wells. What kind of remediation or reinvestment is happening with those wells because of the impact they have on minority communities in California?
Yeah, there are a number of groups that are very focused on this issue. So we are newly a part of a broader coalition. The last
Right, but you do the money. They do the work.
They do the work, and they understand exactly like the harm caused, the mitigations needed. The state has taken certain efforts to address, but I think the follow through is maybe questionable at best. So requiring bonds, but then not requiring them. The state not really following through and requiring. There's a huge price tag on the cost to remediate that no one is really lined up to pick up the check for. So we're saying, like to Royal Bank of Canada, you financed companies that are operating these wells that will have a certain fixed cost to remediate. You should play your part, and we think that's the case for all financial institutions that have been so involved. Certainly the fossil fuel companies, and there's legislation in, I think there's a few pieces of legislation in our legislature and maybe others to have the fossil fuel industry liable for harms. Our Attorney General has gone after the fossil fuel industry as well, because they're ultimately responsible, and they've not been required to pay for the damage caused, even damage that, it's argued they knew was coming, was foreseeable. They knew what was going to happen, and they've not been made to pay. And so when the harm doers are not required to pay, it's the communities that pay.
Yeah, I've been working with Teresa in Mobile. There was a utility company that left some harmful chemicals in this community in Alabama.
Yeah.
That poisoned all the well water. The same company also did the same thing in California in a white community and bought up all their land for $50 million. They haven't even paid for bottled water for people
Oh my gosh.
in Alabama. We attempted to bring this as a fair housing case,
Yes.
as well as an environmental justice case. And it got to certain points, and then did we have jurisdiction over the utility company? Became like, was it a fair housing case? Was it an environmental justice case? Who had jurisdiction is kind of stuck in limbo. But in the meantime, this poison water is still impacting this Black community in Alabama. Yet the homeowners in California got a payout and moved out, and they brownfield that community.
Yeah. So harm, serious harm, and disparities in terms of how much harm and what kind of mitigation and assistance. And you were talking about that yesterday with regard to Altadena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what kind of work are you foreseeing is going to happen in Altadena?
We are trying to get a handle on it. We're connecting with our member organizations. There's a lot of concern about displacement, that people will be, are driven away, will be driven away, will be enticed to leave and not get the full value of their property. So there's, I think, a lot of interest in trying to preserve, stabilize. If people have to leave temporarily, to ensure that there's some right of return, there's some ability for people to return. And we see that maybe is best facilitated, or one way to help make that happen is through vehicles like community land trust and land banking, where nonprofits or public entities can help acquire properties, stabilize properties, and ensure that the resulting use is a community-centered use, so that, focus on homeowners, tenants who are seriously harmed. And there's some tremendous work from nonprofit groups, including SAGE in LA, documenting how landlords are gouging people because they're in distress, concerned about this thriving small business community that was in Altadena, and where are those folks going to go? People who lost jobs because they maybe worked in those businesses, even if they weren't living in those areas, maybe they were working in homes in those fire-affected areas. So what about the jobs? Hearing about churches, mosques damaged, so community institutions. There's got to be a focus on ensuring that, to the extent possible, the community can reconstitute itself and not just be a victim of gentrification pressure or speculation.
We appreciate you, and I'm going to let you get to that chocolate muffin.
It's just sitting right there.
I've confiscated one. You can't go nowhere. I only got 10 minutes left.
I can leave the hot seat.
You can leave the hot seat.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all you do for the people of California and the people of this country. Partner in crime, Kevin Stein. And now I'm going to bring in one of our state justice warriors, Yolanda Taylor. She's an attorney extraordinaire with a community-focused practice, and I want her to talk a little bit about her work in fair housing and her work to strengthen Black communities across our state.
Hey, did not know I was going to be on the show, but
Because
it's an
that's how I
honor.
roll.
That's how she rolls. So it's an honor for us to be here in the presence of Stella Adams and with my other colleagues here in San Diego at a fair housing conference. My work, I work in North Carolina. I live in Wake Forest, but my office is in Roseville, North Carolina. But I do work across the state. I call myself a community lawyer because a community lawyer is someone who uses their legal degree, legal skills to work on behalf of community movements and to help them with their campaigns and to also help them elevate their voice and amplify issues like gentrification or displacement, if you want to call it, disaster relief concerns. Stella and I both are a advocate in support of ensuring an inclusive disaster recovery in North Carolina. My law firm is called Yolanda L. Taylor Law Firm. I do business as the Center for Community Law and Equity, which is my policy lens and my advocacy lens. So I think it's important, especially over the next 4 years, that we focus, on our communities, right? That we focus on what's important, that we create individual strategies for our individual families, and we also strategize around what are some collective strategies that we can do to ensure the safety, the health, and the economic prosperity of our communities. I believe in power building because, as we're seeing in these breaking news, that power is created by those to maintain power,
Right.
but we can build power collectively. Even if we feel powerless, we can build power collectively, and we should not just focus on a national level. It's important that we focus on where we live, and I'm in North Carolina, so Stella and I are really focusing on the state of North Carolina, and we're doing it community by community because we don't believe in cookie cutter policies.
Yeah.
We believe that every community, may have its unique issues, and regions of North Carolina may have their unique issues. So I'm so glad I'm on the show with this trailblazing woman here, Stella Adams. She calls me her 2.0.
That's right. If y'all think I'm bad, this woman is my 2.0. She is the only person that I've given 2.0 status to. Okay? Everybody else is my babies. They're my babies. They do their work. But 2.0.
I mean, we have to do it. I mean, we have to just be that voice. I mean, we can't play it safe anymore. There's been over 400 years plus of oppression in this country. It looks like it's being ratcheted up. Just saw another breaking news regarding the war, in Ukraine. Well, the war is not breaking news, but the fact that America seems to be leaving behind our allies and blaming our allies and blaming, I guess, Joe Biden for the war in Ukraine, even though we know Russia is the one that started the war.
Right.
So there's a lot, I have to say that because there's a lot of things that could distract our attention. But as I stated yesterday, focus is resistance. We definitely have to be focused. We need a.
Did you say that was focus is resistance?
Yeah, I think
Hear
focus
that,
is
people.
resistance.
Focus is resistance. I
It's
like that.
resistance because, if we get distracted, then, it affects our body. We become stressed out. It messes up our cognitive ability to really think. It distracts us from the work that we should be doing. I mean, as Black women, especially, and brown women, this one sitting beside me, so much of it has been, fighting a struggle and a battle in this country. And a lot of us felt left behind or abandoned this past election. And a lot of us say we were going to sip our tea or, watch it all burn. I'm here to tell you that I felt the same way, but we can't watch it all burn because fire can spread to our community, right? If something's burning, it can spread. And I hate to say that in California, glad that the folks here are okay. But yeah, so we cannot sit back and watch the gains that our ancestors have fought for, watch them all evaporate. And that's what I think is that this new administration is trying to do. So coming together in this huddle, like with Stella, and I appreciate her show, like Doing Justice Brings Joy. It definitely brings joy, spiritual joy, emotional joy, and Black joy to me to see that, someone like Stella is still fighting. She still has hope. So hopefully this show brings you hope, and it makes you realize that what can we do? What are the top 3 things in your community that you have concerns about, and how can you join your concerns with your neighbor concerns, and how can you build a consensus around that? Because you have local city council people that make decisions about your day-to-day life. You have local county commissioners that make decisions about your day-to-day lives. So start there about those things that you deal with every day.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Larry, for being on my show today. And thank you, Kevin Stein, my partner in crime, for being on my show today. We are live from California. Come back over here. We are live from California, and the parting words from Yolanda about taking action in your local community, with your local city, with your local county. This is what was done in Durham. That's why we have broader protections. We protect more people in our community, even when the federal funds stop, even if the state funds stop. The city of Durham, the county of Durham are committed to fair housing. I know that the city of Charlotte and the Mecklenburg County are committed to fair housing. They fought in North Carolina. It started in Charlotte to protect LGBTQ and transgender people's rights to be who they were. It started there with the fight against HB1. And so if you're feeling abandoned, know that we are here. Your Durhamites, your folks from Wake Forest, we got North Carolinians from all kinds of places have traveled here to California so that we can work on issues of common concern. They would want us to think we're different, but the core issues are the same. We face water, they face fire, but we're both being devastated. Our communities are laid bare, and they're going to take away whatever support they were offering is being taken away. But that doesn't mean that we as communities working together cannot be resilient, cannot be powerful. And remember that power, this is not Stella making this up. Check with your physics teacher. Power is work over time. And we promise that we will put in the work if you'll put in the time. So thank you for being on this live from San Diego version of Doing Justice. What brings joy?
Yes.
We got to do that one more time for the people. Doing justice brings joy.
Yes, yes.
Bye-bye, folks. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Are you a Black person currently in the technology industry or pursuing a career in tech? The Blacks in Technology Foundation is here to support fulfilling your goals. BIT is the largest community of Black people in the technology industry focused on increasing racial equity in tech. We are a nonprofit dedicated to offering no and low-cost services to people of African descent worldwide. Our complimentary services include training and certification, scholarships and grants, various mentorship opportunities, career development and job-seeking services, professional networking, events and conferences, support for entrepreneurs, and much more. We are ready to help people across all technology disciplines, including those who are transitioning to the industry and those who work in technology companies but not in technical roles. Our goal is to help every member succeed. Join Blacks in Technology today and start stomping the divide.